emails, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. There are so many different tools you can market your handmade business. How do you possibly do all of them? Especially if you feel like you should do all of them. How do you do all the ones you should do? And how can you be sure it's going to be worth the time you put into it? The key is to make it all work together, fit together like a puzzle. So today I'm going to teach you how to think about your marketing so you can make it time effective and make it increase your sales. Welcome to Explore Your Enthusiasm with me, Tara Swiger. This is episode 210, and this episode has a workbook that goes along with it. So I'm going to ask you to apply this to your own business in the workbook. You can get that at taraswiger.com/podcast210 for episode 210. So if you struggle to figure out what to say on Instagram or Facebook or how often you should post or how you even know it's working, the fact is you need a marketing plan. A marketing plan is just identifying who you're talking to, getting clear on your message, what are you saying, and deciding where to post your message and when you're going to post it. Those questions have to be answered for you to know what it is you're doing. If you're just jumping around from thing to thing, it's not cohesive and it's not going to be effective. So if you haven't answered those who, what, where, and when questions in your business, or if you haven't organized it into a plan that you can follow, my class, Craft Your Marketing, can help you do exactly that. It's a 5-week deep dive into your business universe, who populates it, what language they speak, and you're going to create a map for the train, the map of what you're going to do, a plan to speak to your people regularly and build relationships. It takes the basics of my book, Market Yourself. When you buy the class, you get a free PDF of the book, and it builds on that and adds to it. I wrote that book in 2012. Craft Your Marketing, I've updated with talking about Instagram and talking about your email list and giving you an even more specific plans to some of the tools you're going to use today. So you'll read through Market Yourself, you'll answer the workbooks in the workbook pages in that book, but I'll also guide you to go even deeper. There's more workbook pages, there's an audio lesson for every week for 5 weeks, and then there's every week a bonus resource section with a lot of other resources, things like other people's checklists and content plans and templates and articles and podcast episodes that are going to apply to what you're working on that week in your business. So the class is for you if you've never read the book, or if you have read it and you got stuck or you didn't implement what you read, or if you worked through it more than a year ago and you need to refresh what your marketing plan is. It's open now and it closes this Friday. So you only have a couple days if this is the first you're hearing about it on the podcast. By the way, my email subscribers heard about this a week ago, so they've had a little more time. But you can find it at taraswiger.com/CYM for taraswiger.com/craftyourmarketing. It's CYM, Craft Your Marketing. So this podcast episode is going to be about how to think about fitting your marketing together. But the difference between this episode and the class is that in the class, you're actually going to do all of the digging into each part of your marketing plan. Right now, we're going to talk about how to make your plan fit together so you're not doing a bunch of disparate things, but you have to answer the foundational questions first. You have to figure out who are your people, what is the language you need to use to talk to them, what is your message about what's special about your work, and then how are you going to deliver it out into the world, and then make a plan for that. So the workbook for this episode, which you can find at taraswiger.com/podcast210, is kind of like what you get in the class, but the class is a much deeper dive, much more specific, and it's going to get you really clear. Like the thing that people tell me about the class is it gets them really, really clear about what they need to do to make more sales. And I've been asked about the difference between a podcast and a course, and I like how one of my students explained it. She said, when I listen to an episode, I walk away feeling inspired. But when I take one of your classes, I walk away with a plan of action. So it's really the difference. If you've been enjoying this podcast, the class is going to also have 5 audio lessons, but they dig deep into the specifics of what you're going to do for your business. You're not going to get inspired, you're going to get a plan of action. Now, for this episode, let's get you inspired about your marketing. So one of the problems I hear from makers and artists is even if you know what to say, you've already answered the question of who your people are and how you talk to them, there's so many different places to post it. And do you need something new in every place? How do you make it cohesive? How do you make it effective? How do you make it worth your time? How does anybody have any of the time to post to all of the different places you could post to? So the key is to fit it all together. Look at each marketing activity as a piece of your puzzle as opposed to a totally separate thing. And this isn't just important for your own peace of mind and your own time management. It's really vital if you want your marketing to be effective. If it's going to be effective, it has to be cohesive. You have to say the same message in all of the places and using all of the different communication tools. That means verbally, visually, tone, style. Is it all cohesive? Is it all clearly you and your brand of your company? So now your marketing tools are going to work together. The best way to have effective marketing and not be wasting your time is to make sure they all work together. To be most effective, they need to say the same message at the same time, and that message should serve your goal. So you always want to be thinking about what your goal is for any particular marketing activity and make sure that everything is working towards that same goal. So if you're struggling with your marketing, or let's even back up further, marketing is simply how you communicate your message to interested people. It's not about convincing people. It's not about selling something people don't want. It's not even about selling at all. The end result of effective marketing communication is a sale, and it's a sale in which the person wants and values what you sell more than they value the money they're exchanging for it. So how do you do that? You communicate effectively the benefits and the value of what you're offering, and you talk directly to the people who are going to be most interested. You don't waste your time with people who aren't interested. So if you're struggling with that communication, with that marketing, you need to back way up and ask yourself, what is my goal? And if you plan on taking craft your marketing, I want you first to ask yourself, what is my goal right now? If you've worked through Map Your Business or you're in the Starship, then you've been working on what is your goal for the quarter. Are you trying to increase your online sales? Are you trying to build your email list? Are you increasing the number of people who come by your booth at a show? Are you trying to increase your Instagram? And if you're just trying to increase your Instagram, to what end? What is the goal of that? So you need to know your big goal. Like I want to hit this number of sales. I need to have this level of profitability. I want to be in this many shows. And then underneath that, and I talk about this all the time, and this is what my book, Map Your Business, helps you do. Underneath the big vision of this year or the next 5 years is what am I going to work on right now to get me there? Am I going to work on building my Instagram audience or building my email list? Or am I going to work on getting more sales from the audience I already have? So the question is always, why are you doing this particular marketing thing? What is the goal you're hoping it helps you reach? Now this question is so clarifying and can help strip down and narrow down everything you're doing. So when I ask clients this question, we just knock out a bunch of shoulds they had hanging over them. Oh, I should start a YouTube channel. I should start a blog. I should be sending this email 1,000,000 times a day. Wait, why? What's the goal? When you focus in on what you're working on right now, big picture, and then you narrow that down to what are you working on this quarter or this month, then your marketing can all just be in alignment with that, and that means you can leave off a bunch of things that other people are doing. So once you have that in mind, once you have your goal in mind, I want you to think about your marketing as a customer path. Now, I've done podcasts about what the customer path is. I'll link those up in the show notes, and I have a whole class on Creative Live about building your customer path. So a quick short version is your path is what leads people from discovering you to buying from you. So how do they find you? And then how do they fall in love with you and learn to trust you and learn about the value of your product? And then how do they buy from you? That process is a path. Your customer path is how your customer experiences your marketing. So you today might post on Facebook and Instagram, and you might do an Instagram live or a couple Instagram stories. And next week you might send out an email and also post that to your Facebook page. That's how you're experiencing your marketing. You're doing what you're doing today. But your customer isn't experiencing it like that. Your customer is going from message to message to message. Your customer found you someplace, then follows you someplace in order to get to know you better. Maybe it's your Instagram, maybe they join your Facebook group, maybe they join your email list, and then they come to the point where you ask them to buy. So that's your customer path. If you're not thinking of your marketing in terms of that path, then you're likely sending your people all over the place. Either they don't know what to do to get to know you better, maybe you don't have a way for them to get to know you better, like Instagram or an email list or a Facebook group, or they get in that cycle of getting to know you better and you never lead them to a sale. You never lead them to what the next step is. So you want to think about your marketing in terms of a path. That's going to help you streamline what you're doing because you want to make sure each tool serves to move them down the path. So you're going to think about each of your marketing tools. Where is the buyer coming into contact with each piece of your content, and then what are you doing after that? So for example, you might be using hashtags as a way for people to find you, or participating in challenges in order for people to find you on Instagram. So they find you on Instagram, they follow you on Instagram. Then your path would need to be that you lead them to someplace else. You can't make sales on Instagram, right? There's no buy button. So you need to either, you could run an ad with a buy button, or you can talk about something that then you link to in your profile, and it either takes them to your website, or it takes them to a blog post, or maybe it takes them directly to your shop and they buy. That's an example of a customer path. People might find me because a friend recommends my podcast, so then they subscribe to the podcast, and my podcast has to send them somewhere. You can't be a customer and just listen to the podcast. So it's either going to tell you to go to Amazon and get my book, Map Your Business, or it's going to tell you about a class you can register for, or it's going to just send you back to the show notes where you're going to sign up for a free workbook and then get my emails that then send you to the next thing, right? So it goes find podcasts, subscribe to podcasts, get emails, subscribe to emails, then purchase. I have higher end products that are for a very specific market, so my customer path is longer. If you sell a $10 hat, your customer path can be super short. Okay, so thinking about your marketing in terms of your customer path is going to help you, is going to help streamline your marketing and help you see how it all begins to fit together. Okay, so I want you to think about each of your marketing tools as where is the person who's seeing this on the path? Is this reaching a bunch of new to me people? Is this reaching a bunch of my long-term people? Or is this reaching somebody who knows me enough and is ready for to purchase? In which case you're going to send them to purchase. So think of your emails like this. One of your most effective tools is going to be your email list. Your email list is most effective because it goes directly into their inbox. 99% of emails are delivered, whereas only 9 to 11% of the people who follow you on Facebook are going to see your post, meaning it's not delivered to the people who want to see it. Those numbers might have shifted. That's back from 2016. People who subscribe to your emails really want to hear from you. If I give you my email address, I am on board for what you're doing and I want to know more. So these are the people who are most ready to buy. So this is both a way for them to get to know you, but it's also where they're ready for you to lead them to buy from you, to let them know what you have available for sale. So you want to look at this email as a way to serve your customer. Now, another super effective tool is social media, right? Connecting with your people and being in your community. So you can share your process, your story, your customer stories, their testimonials. You can create a hashtag that your customers use when they get your product, and then you can share their posts about your product. By the way, your customers will love this. They love to be featured, and you sharing them means they're reaching a bigger audience, and everybody who's on Instagram, unless they have their account set to private, they want to reach a bigger audience. So when you're thinking about what social media tool to use and how it's going to fit together in your puzzle, I want you to ask yourself, what is your goal and what makes sense for your work? So Instagram is very visually striking. If what you need is a community, like you're a yarn shop or you're a teacher, then you're going to use a Ravelry forum or a Facebook group. If you do a lot of live events, then you want to have a Facebook page with your live events so that you can include the map and details and give people, they can RSVP and you can give them updates there, right? If you are creating a local community, then you're going to use local tools. Like I use the Nextdoor app for my essential oils class, and I always meet new local people, or networking groups for women entrepreneurs. That's how you want to think about what tools you're using, is what's your goal, and then what is that tool particularly good at. So if you are an educator or your business is around talking, like you're a consultant, then you want to look into YouTube and podcasts. That's why I have both a podcast and a YouTube channel, is because my business is about talking to you and teaching you. And so writing my blog wasn't giving you a taste of what it's actually like to come take one of my classes in person or online. So by doing the podcast, I could show you what it's actually like. So that's another way to think about your puzzle pieces, is how does it fit into who you're talking to and what's special about your work. And in Craft Your Marketing, we dig deep into what's special about your work so you can identify it and communicate it. Now, the last way I want you to think about fitting all your marketing together is the hub and spoke system. So if you think about a wheel, there's a hub in the center and there's spokes that go out from it. The thing is, all of your marketing needs to either be the hub or the spoke. And the spoke sends traffic back down to the hub, and the hub creates content and sends it out onto the spokes. So I'm going to give you some examples of this. The main thing to remember is you don't have to create new content for everything. You do not have to write one thing in your email and then talk about something totally different on your Instagram, then talk about something totally different in your Facebook group. In fact, if you do that, none of those messages are going to break through. Because keep in mind, people aren't seeing all your messages to begin with. And secondly, they're not seeing all your messages, and they're not following everything. So whatever your goal is for this week or this month, whatever your focus is, so your goal is kind of like the bigger thing you're working on, and your focus is what are you going to focus on this week to make that happen? You want to make that message consistent across all the different ways you're talking to people. And the way to do this is to create one piece of content or one message on your hub and send it out to all your spokes. So for an example, I'll give an example of my business because that's one you guys are familiar with, and then I'll give you an example, a made-up example for a handmade business. So in my business, my podcast episodes, and particularly the show notes on my site, that's my hub. So I make my podcast, I first write it, I record it, both in audio and video, and then I take that writing, it becomes a transcript. I take the video, we split it into the audio podcast, the YouTube video. That one piece of content gets put a couple different places. All of those places have the link to bring you back to the show notes on my site, because that's a real hub. The show notes on my site have the video, the audio, the links, and then a sign-up form so you can get the transcript or the workbook every week. If you didn't know that, that's there every week. So the episodes that are on YouTube or in your ears, however you're listening to this podcast, send you back to my site. And then the spokes that go out from here are the podcast and YouTube, but also Instagram. I post on Instagram almost every week about what's on the podcast that week, telling you to click the link in my profile to listen. I post on Instagram stories multiple times throughout the week about the topic I covered on my podcast. Sometimes I'm just saying a snippet of what's already in the podcast. Sometimes Jolie makes me these video snippets I share on Instagram stories. That's like a little bit from the show. And then I do Facebook posts. Facebook posts that are quotes from the podcast, Facebook posts telling you what the podcast's about, Facebook posts asking you questions about what we talked about in the podcast to get conversation going. But I really each week only need to focus on one thing, which is what I talked about in that podcast episode, and then share it in all the places. And by doing that, I'm creating regular, consistent, cohesive content that's engaging my audience and building their trust and relationships between the two of us. Because when I post on Instagram or I post on Facebook, it starts conversations and we start talking about that and I learn more. And so whenever I do a podcast episode that focuses on a class I have available, that serves as marketing for that class. If I do events, I talk about the events I'm doing and it serves as marketing for that. You do not have to have a weekly podcast in order to have a hub and spoke system. You can use your blog, you can use your shop, you can use your email list as the hub, and the spokes are sending people back to that. So you're just creating content in one place and putting it out on your spokes that send people back to the hub. So for example, in a handmade business, your hub may be your shop. So you would do an email and say specifically your focus this week is you're doing a sale in your shop, or it's let's just say a new product launch instead of sales, because we don't like sales as much. So you're going to do an email regarding that new product launch, and that email is going to link them back to the shop. Then you're going to do an Instagram post regarding the new product launch. We're going to do several in a row over the course of days and then send them back to the shop. You're going to do a Ravelry post or a Facebook group post or a post in your Nextdoor app, or however your business is built, that tells them about that launch that leads them back to your shop. Do you see that? You might even do a post on your site that is all about the shop update or the launch, all of the information about the launch that leads them to your site, and use all your spokes to go back to that main descriptor, that main post on your page, on your site, about what's in this new launch. So if you're doing a whole new line, you might want to do a whole blog post about the line and make all your spokes send back to that blog post, which of course leads them to the shop. Or maybe your goal for this quarter is to grow your email list because you want to grow your email list and get new people on your list so you have new customers. So then your hub is going to be your email sign-up form. Everything you create sends people back to your email sign-up form. Maybe you create a really awesome download for people to get. Now with the new laws in Europe, you need to make sure that people know they're signing up for marketing messages from you, but everything can send people back to that sign up form, your Instagram, your Facebook, your emails. Like in your emails, you can write emails that people forward to their friends so that they can join your list to get whatever you give them when they join your list. So you see, you're creating first you need to know your goals, and then you need to know your focus, and then you can create just one piece of content and then share that in all the places and in different ways in all the places. Your way you share something on Instagram is going to be different than how you share it on Instagram stories, which is going to be different than how you share it in a Facebook group. But it's going to be the same basic content. You don't have to create things over and over. So a marketing plan is simply this, a plan for this, what we talked about, a plan for what you're going to say and where. But before you get to that, you have to know, who are you talking to? What do they care about? What do they want to hear from you? And what tools you're going to use to communicate that to them. So we go into all of this in Craft Your Marketing and my book, Market Yourself. Like I said, Craft Your Marketing is open for 2 more days. You can find it at taraswiger.com/CYM. After that, it's going to be closed. It's going to be closed at least for 6 weeks, maybe even longer. But this is your last chance to get on that. If you want to get help and support and ask your questions as you go through Craft Your Marketing and talk to other makers about their marketing plans and get a lot of feedback and ideas, you can join the Starship. The Starship is open right now. It gives you free access to Craft Your Marketing. You also get access to my whole library of classes. There's over $1,500 worth of classes. Plus you get the weekly text chat with me, the monthly Q&A, and the group where you can post all your questions and get feedback from other makers and artists. And I gotta tell you, the makers and artists in the Starship are absolutely the best part of it. So it's open right now. You can find a link to it in the show notes here, taraswiger.com/podcast210 for Craft Your Marketing, for your free workbook, and if you want to learn more about the Starship. As a reminder, the clearer your message is and the more cohesive it is across all your tools, the more effective it's going to be. Thank you so much for listening, and I wish you a very enthusiastic and effective day.